Hello, I'm Enzo, and today I'll be playing Gregtech New Horizons, and this is going to be part 2 of my series. If you didn't watch part 1, well, you kinda have to, cause let me tell you, even I have no clue what's going on right now. I only remember what I was doing because, I'm looking back at all this footage. Starting out, I just wanted to say how insane this dungeon I found was. Okay, well, yes, it's a spawner, but also dungeon. It gave me a whole bunch of food, and this food is just insanity. Not to mention whatever those marshmallows are, but a ton of supreme pizzas, curry rice. Needless to say, finding that made me very happy. That means I don't have to worry about food for quite a while. My entire goal of the current trip I'm on is to actually find more cassiterite sand, which is the stuff that contains tin. I'm going to need an insane amount of tin. And of course, copper. Since you should all know what these two combine to make, well, I'm getting plenty of bronze, which is kind of essential for the current, age that I'm in, the Bronze Age. My pickaxe also finally leveled up, which means I could mine some new stuff, including diamonds, which would be super neat to find. Not like I can really use them right now or anything, I can't even make like a pickaxe with them. However, they will come in handy for some machinery later on. I was looking through the tools that I could craft to see if there's a way to make better ones, with bronze or something like that, but no, iron is still my best option right now, at least. But I found some neutronium, which that'll be super interesting. The end game of this pack looks just mind-boggling and ridiculous, to say the least. But of course, since I saw neutronium, I had to make an oxygen not included reference, pretty much my favorite game ever. Naturally, since I'm trying to actually make some stuff in this pack, I've been having to make a ton of new tools because, they break super easily, especially the low tier ones like iron. But at least they're relatively cheap, they're just extremely annoying to make. Anyways, I'm currently working on making a whole lot of gold plates and gold screws. This is to actually make gold chests. A lot of my chests currently are iron, which is pretty nice, they have quite a bit extra storage space, but gold gives me even more. The only issue is it's a tiny bit expensive. Gold is kind of rare, it's not the worst, and it's pretty nice because gold veins have magnetite in it, which is iron, but considering each plate costs 2 gold, yeah, the costs add up quickly. Either way, these are going to be well worth it because of how powerful and useful they are. I also dug out another room, and I was planning to make this a whole ore storage facility, but let's just say that idea kind of got scrapped because I realized how bad placing all the ores in each drawer would actually be later on. I think the chests do work the best for storing ores, especially with the JEI, which is the whole item search menu there. You can actually double click the search bar and it will highlight items in the chests. What's cooler is that it actually functions with the holo glasses that, let me see the projections of what items are in there. What I'm trying to say is that finding items is just way easier in chests. I'd have to read through all of these on the bottom right. Yeah, it was not my best idea. In the background, I've also been doing a lot of crop breeding. Now, granted, I'm growing more garden weeds than anything else, but I've managed to create a turnip. I'm extremely excited by this because this is the first crop I've managed to breed, which is super exciting. I also killed a witch that spawned at night, and she dropped a piston, which is super cool because, let me tell you, these things are super annoying to craft later on. Well, they're definitely not the worst compared to pretty much everything else in this pack, but still, I guess I'll have to get used to horrible crafting recipes. The next quest that I'm working on is going to be a massive game changer for me. That's actually backpacks. Now, I can't make the backpack that can store anything. Well, actually I can because I have steel, and I'll make that later on. But for now, I can make specialized backpacks. In this case, one for blocks like stone and dirt that I dig up, and one that can hold a ton of different ores or dust and stuff like that. This will be extremely helpful when I go mining next time. Oh, here's a special mob, Ender Mini. Yes, you heard that right, a baby Enderman. That's just one of the fun mobs that this mod pack adds, or at least whatever mod that thing is from. I'll explain the trees a bit later on, but I decided to torch up the area beneath my tree farm because mobs were spawning in here. It was getting super annoying when I found this thing, a dungeon floor. The mod is called Loot Games, and it's pretty interesting because it literally adds like a mini game underground in dungeons like this. Well, I'll admit, I love the idea and the game, but it's Minesweeper. I think I played Minesweeper before, but let's just say I don't know how to actually play it. I knew this was going to be a disaster, especially because I don't know what you're supposed to click in this pack. I mean, I have a general idea of how it works, like I flagged one there, like that is definitely a mine. But yeah, I don't think I could actually beat this. I'll admit, I actually got some good progress on my first try. And you do get 3 tries for this entire game, but let's just say if you fail all 3, the entire place detonates. I mean, it's a neat little concept, and I guess I'll have to learn Minesweeper if I find any more of these. But yeah, it was a combination of bad luck, but mostly misclicks. Either way, this place is now a mess, but the only good thing I can say about this is that it exposed a ton of ores beneath it, which is actually quite nice. I probably spent like several hours farming a ton of trees, growing and harvesting them manually, before I read a comment that told me about bonsai saplings. Yeah, apparently you can just plant the saplings on crops and they grow that way. This is an incredibly powerful mechanic. It saves probably like hundreds of hours in the end. So as always, I really appreciate your guys' comments. They help out a ton, especially in a pack like this where I have no clue what's going on. I just wish that I had, read that a bit sooner because I found it way too late after I had already planted like stacks of saplings. And here's what I'm talking about when I say they're extremely powerful. Granted, not all the saplings drop stuff, but getting like 10 wood or around that amount for a single sapling that I just have to right click and wait to grow is a bit powerful to say the least. Like I said, this is going to save a whole lot of time. While I went exploring, I found this odd hybrid tree. I guess it's fair to call it a mutant in a way, but it's a cross between a cherry and an avocado tree. Now that's pretty interesting. The entire reason I went on that trip was to actually get more clay. As you can see here, I got a lot of clay, and that's quite important. I also got some cows from the other side of this mountain, as you can probably see by that gigantic tunnel that I dug myself. I'm actually quite proud of that. I had no clue how I was going to get the cows over here initially, but then I had the bright idea to just dig through the mountain. It saves me a lot of time when I have to go back over there. I've been harvesting all this clay and some sand so that I can make a ton of seared bricks to upgrade my smeltery. You see, the only problem here, I initially thought that this pack removed the ability to use seared stone to build up your smeltery, but I was completely wrong. Apparently you can still use seared stone. So this is a massive waste of resources, but on the bright side, I did use a lot of the seared bricks to make other smeltery stuff, like casting basins and drains a bit later on. When I was working on some food stuff, I noticed this. There is blood in my smeltery. I can confirm I have not fallen into the smeltery yet. I did later on, but that's not important. Something must have spawned or fallen in here because, yeah, that's definitely not my blood. Another super cool thing that one of my viewers recommended was making a paper bark tree. These are extremely simple to make. It's literally a jungle sapling and a piece of paper. And yeah, the bark grows paper. You just have to right click it every so often to harvest it. It's a super neat thing, but you can't make bonsai versions of these. As much as I wanted to, I'm pretty sure those only work for vanilla saplings, because even rubber trees don't work, but it makes a lot of sense because that wouldn't really be balanced. I mean, getting paper this way is far easier already, so I'm not complaining. For my next project, I had a crazy idea. One of the resources I need is obsidian. Unfortunately, I can't mine obsidian just yet. One of these structures with all the enemies here actually has obsidian. I first fought one that was abandoned, but yeah, this one had live enemies. And that was my first death, by the way. I'm not trying to do this hardcore. I'm not trying to do, a one life or anything like that, but I didn't want to die. It truly sucks because when I went to retrieve my items, I didn't put out all the fires and I actually lost some stuff. Thankfully, I didn't lose any important tools, but I lost a bit of armor and my sleeping bag. The sleeping bag does take tanned leather, which is insanely annoying to make, but still, it could have been worse. I managed to deal with all of the crimson enemies in the end, but it definitely wasn't worth it because, yeah, I didn't get that much obsidian out of this. Not enough to complete my plans, at least. Alright, so what was I attempting through all of this? Well, it definitely wasn't worth it, considering I lost some of my really good gear, but I wanted to try and get alumite a bit early. You see, I had the aluminum ore berries, so there's that. I have a tiny bit of steel that I looted, probably from that spawner earlier, and I have, well, obsidian from these structures. Long story short, I wanted to cheese the game and get a ton of alumite early so that I could actually upgrade my tool forge and make better tools. The main issue is that you need 16 ingots and I could barely, and I mean barely, make 2. That's using all of my resources, by the way. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to wait until later when I'm actually supposed to make the upgraded tool forge. Thankfully, it's not super far. You do get it pretty early on, but I need steel production for all of that. Alright, it's time for what we've all been waiting for. Well, probably since the end of last episode, really. I want to get started on some actual machinery. Well, steam machinery, because that's all I have at this point, but let me tell you, it's gonna get really awesome. So I have a coal boiler already. That's pretty cool and all, but I'm going to need some actual machines. The first thing I'm going to make is an alloy smelter. This will let me make some pretty neat alloys that will be useful for later on. I also made some large bronze pipes, as even the mod calls it, a poor man's buffer, because I don't have a way to store a ton of steam just yet. It took me a while to figure all of this out, and you guys probably have noticed this, but yeah, I dug out this entire room just for all of the steam equipment. You'll see later on, it's gonna get pretty packed. Anyways, as long as the 2 buildings are hooked up by the steam piping, it should just work. For buildings that consume the steam, like this alloy smelter, you need to right-click on one of the faces that isn't like the front or connected to steam already, because all the machines actually need somewhere to output the steam that they use. As the mod says, you're supposed to fill up the boiler with water first, because if you make it hot and then put in water, it'll actually explode. Yeah, that sounds like a whole bunch of fun, so I'm not going to be doing that. Water always first. Unfortunately, none of the machines actually have a steam indicator. That's like my largest issue with the entire system. But inside of the boiler, there are 3 meters. The one in the middle is water, the one on the right is heat, and the one on the left will be steam if the pipes fill up enough. I was trying to figure out why nothing was working, and unfortunately this boiler doesn't tell you, but the later ones do. It's gotta heat up first. Yeah, it actually has to get hot enough to, boil the steam first. So that's probably gonna take a couple of minutes. Either way, the first and main alloy that I'm going to be using the alloy smelter to make is red alloy. For this, I need 4 redstone to 1 copper. The main thing you have to be careful with is the alloy smelter just chews through steam, especially at the beginning here because I create so little. Later on, again, it's going to be super awesome, just all the machines I can feed and what I can do, but I have to play it slow for now. But now the boiler is hot enough and it's actually creating a bit of steam. Unfortunately, this is the most basic boiler, so it's going to be pretty freaking slow. It's only 60 liters a second. I don't actually know what the ratio is, because unlike most mod packs, it appears for some reason you get way more steam per water. Like, in most packs it would be a 1-to-1 ratio, but in here I'm guessing it's like 1 to 100 or 1,000. It's pretty good whatever it is. Either way, I wanted to make sure that I had plenty of steam in reserve before I activated the machine. I set the steam output to the top just so I could make sure of where it was. I still didn't understand that 100% at this point, but I am learning, and obviously I know after playing all of it when I'm actually doing the voiceover. A little bit later, I decided I was finally ready. I put in 4 redstone and 1 copper, and boom! Red alloy, just like that. I have to admit, that was way faster than I expected, but that's just how the alloy smelter can be. Some of the machines are painfully slow, especially the basic ones like this. The big thing I have to be careful of is not putting too many recipes in at once. You see, if it doesn't have enough steam, the recipe just won't go through. It'll still consume your steam and resources, but won't make anything, which can really suck. And, well, here's a great example of that. I literally can't create anything because I ran out of steam. Now here's what you do not do. You do not pick up the block like an idiot because then you lose all of your steam and your ingredients. What you should do is actually disconnect the machine, build up a decent buffer of steam, and reconnect the pipe. A bit later on, I need to make a piston. This requires all sorts of wooden materials, some cobblestone, small iron gears, and stuff like that. It also requires a red alloy plate. The piston will let me make some more machines, which is very exciting. This is when the run is truly beginning. Well, I'm probably going to say that like dozens of times throughout this run because I'm unlocking a whole bunch of new progress and plenty of new things that I can actually do. The next machine I want to make is a macerator. It's going to make processing ores way easier. The issue is that I need diamonds for it, so I have to go find some diamonds. You know, I also read now that it says I can enter the Twilight Forest with one. You see, I was gonna talk about that later, like I don't know when the game wants me to explore the Twilight Forest, but I guess I can at any point. Well, I guess I know I'm gonna start next episode then. If you're wondering how I get diamonds, well, they're in ore veins just like everything else. Conveniently, I've already discovered a few veins, and since my pickaxe leveled up at the beginning of this episode, well, I can mine them. Conveniently, they come in ore form, so I can just smelt them down into pure diamonds. This is beautiful. Unfortunately, diamonds don't have many uses. I can't make most tools out of them, trust me, I've tried. However, the best thing I can make with them, well, besides the macerator, is actually diamond hammers. They have an incredible amount of durability for how cheap they are. I say cheap, but again, I don't have any uses for diamonds right now. And considering I chew through tools like small candy, yeah, I think this is going to be a great investment. Well, I can very much confirm, yes, this is an amazing investment. Even though the macerator isn't extremely useful, just yet at least, the next machine I'm making, a compressor, well, okay, it's not super useful either, but it has like niche uses that I will require it for later on. Like making blocks of iron, for example. I can make some other blocks like gold or stuff like that, but it'll be incredibly important for making one special resource that I'm gonna need tons of. As usual, I'm working on several things at once. I've been doing a whole ton of farming in the background, but now I want to highlight something super interesting. I guess I could have made all of this for a while now because I've always had the resources, but the missions are telling me how to make glass, finally. Yeah, of course, it's not as simple as just throwing some sand in a furnace. No, that would be way too easy. I need to grind up a whole bunch of flint and, well, sand. Combining the flint and sand dust will give me, well, glass dust. When I get some specialized machines later on, I can actually process the glass just easily like that. However, for now, I actually have to throw this glass dust into the smeltery, and of course, cast it into actual glass blocks. Alright, I understand this system pretty easily, but you're probably wondering, how do I get normal glass? Because when you make glass using the Tinker's Contract Smeltery, it's their clear glass. It's not vanilla glass that I'm gonna need for other recipes. Well, apparently I can just throw that modded glass into a chisel to make vanilla glass. And something super interesting I wish I'd known from the start, you can actually transform most blocks with the chisel. You see all of that smooth marble that I use as my floor? Apparently you can just throw raw marble into a chisel and make it smooth. Yeah, I don't have to throw it into a furnace twice or anything like that and waste a ton of fuel. It's just as simple as using a chisel. So that is something very good to know. Always see if you can chisel it first. But the main reason I need the glass actually returns to the farming that I've been working on. This will let me make a magnifying glass. The magnifying glass is super neat because I can now tell what plants are what. This is especially helpful when I'm doing crop breeding like this, so if I get like some new bizarre crop that I've never seen before in the middle, I can actually tell what it is now. For example, wheat. I mean, I could kind of see that, but it's helpful to know for sure what plants are what. Another super useful feature that I was kind of talking about earlier is hitting T to find certain objects. It literally snaps your camera to whatever it's in and highlights it. It's an awesome feature, especially in this mod pack where you're just gonna have hundreds of chests full of stuff. In this case, when I was looking for my sleeping bag, boom, I could locate it super easily. I found all sorts of cool stuff when I was exploring. I was mostly gathering more clay and stuff like that, but I found some of these skystone asteroids. This is for applied energetics, likely like a few hundred hours later on. But I wanted to highlight this one because, well, there's lava surrounding it. It looks like a proper meteor crater. Remember those houses that had the dungeons underneath them from last episode? Well, I had a genius idea. You see, I need a ridiculous amount of clay to make bricks for my next mission. So I had a great idea. Well, what if I just stole all the bricks from these houses? It really depends on the height of the house, as you'll see later on, but this thing has a super deep, like, structure made of these bricks. I did the math at some point. I think it's like 80 or something like that bricks per layer. So, yeah, getting the bricks for what I need is going to be super easy thanks to this. It would have taken a lot of clay and smelting time otherwise. My entire goal right now is to get work started on making steel. That's why I need all those bricks. There's also this massive list of ridiculous resources that I'm going to need as well. So I'm working on harvesting all of those right now. Remember the weird night that I had in the first episode where I believed it was a blood moon? Now, I wasn't 100% right because it's not technically a blood moon, it's more of a full moon, but it makes me think of Terraria's blood moon. All I know is that I cannot sleep through nights like this, and there seem to be more mobs. I'm probably just going crazy. Also, a zombie tried to break through my door, so in Terraria fashion, I'm just gonna block it off. I love when game knowledge crosses over to other games. I have been collecting some resources, but that's not what's important. Look at this! I managed to grow an oak bonsai and some raspberries. That's the power of plant breeding right there. Unfortunately, I didn't know 100% how to make all this work at the time, but you're supposed to left click the plant when it's fully grown to get the highest chance of seeds. Either way, these are some really cool resources. Bamboo, dark oak trees, onions, and blue glow shrooms. Yeah, I like plant breeding a lot. It's a super neat mechanic. And from what comments have told me, you can actually get some stuff like titanium eventually, so you don't actually have to visit planets. Because apparently you can beat this pack without going to space. You would have to legitimately be crazy to try something like that, or do any of the challenges that are suggested, because beating this pack is almost impossible in the first place. I saw one comment that said only like 1,000 people have ever beaten this. I mean, it makes sense considering the pure length and difficulty of this pack, but that's not going to stop me or deter me. I want to try and beat this pack. Will it be possible? Who knows? But perhaps someday, in several years. I was harvesting some lapis, or at least the lapis vein to get calcite that I need, when I killed a creeper and it dropped this thing, a diving helmet. At first, I thought it wasn't going to be that useful, but it will come in handy later when I'm going to mine like clay and sand from underwater. So it was an amazing find. On top of that, the mission gives me some extra calcite, which is extremely helpful considering how rare it is. Something I hadn't faced in this mod pack up until now, which also unlocked a brand new fear. Ender creepers. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. A creeper that can teleport. I don't think there's anything scarier in this game than that. Oh, and by the way, the freaking out there, you can see by my camera going everywhere, that was completely real. I hit my keyboard away by accident. Yeah, I truly hope I never see one of those things ever again. That was terrifying. One neat tool I made is a butchery knife. I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. If I remember correctly, I think it actually gives more animal products too, besides removing the explosion when you kill mobs. This is extremely nice, especially when I'm dealing with something like cows. I need the beef for food, and leather has all sorts of uses. Considering it's just a bunch of iron plates, considering it just costs a bunch of iron, or whatever resource you want to make it out of, it's super cheap for how useful it is. And I discovered this when I went mining, a ninja skeleton. Camouflages into nearby blocks. A sponge is definitely a block that would spawn around here. Camouflage, by the way. I hope you guys can see what's wrong with this before I can. I decided to level up my tools with lapis, which I should have done as soon as possible, so I can get more ores, but guess what? I leveled up the wrong tool. That is my mattock, not my pickaxe. I was kind of devastated when I realized what I'd done, because that was a lot of lapis I just wasted. Like a ton of lapis, by the way. It truly sucks because luck on the Matic doesn't even do much. It's only really good for killing things. Like, I don't know what I can actually harvest that I will get luck on. It mostly just works on ores and stuff like that. But yeah, I wanted to mention that because I should have done that from the start so I can get even more ore than I did before. The next machine I made is an extractor. A lot of these machines do have similar components. It's mostly like bronze, a couple of bricks, pistons, simple stuff like that. And of course, tons of tools. Now, this is where I would like to note that making this extractor, it's good for a whole bunch of stuff, but I did all of this in a really stupid order. So the game intends for you to make all of your brick dust that you need from, clay bricks. But since I have brick blocks, I could actually just throw those into the macerator to make the brick dust that I need. Instead, I went for the method that takes like 5 times as long. I threw the bricks into the extractor so that I could get the, small bricks, 4 of them per block, and then throw those into the macerator. Again, if I had known you can just throw the blocks straight into the macerator, it would have gone way faster. Now that I'm adding a whole bunch of new machines, I decided to upgrade my steam production as well. This is extremely simple, just add more boilers. Thankfully, these large bronze pipes can easily handle this. The main issue that I'm facing right now is actually water. How am I going to get more water into those boilers? Obviously, doing it manually would be very annoying and take a lot of time. So instead, I decided to actually route all of my water from my current tank down underground using some wooden pipes, because they're cheap. Also, you have to make brick dust using a steam hammer. This is why I was making iron blocks, because I need an anvil for this. I'm getting things mixed up, but that's going to happen a lot in this run. Oh, by the way, something I've forgotten to mention up to this point. Yes, the steam output does burn you from these machines. Fun. You also can't walk on the pipes because, it's superheated steam. Also super fun. The thing that really sucks is that walking on blocks is actually my favorite pastime when it comes to machines and stuff like this, so that's gonna suck because I'm gonna hurt myself a lot throughout this run doing that. You guys haven't even gotten to see the most fun part of this entire recipe. I need like 36 buckets of concrete. This requires calcite, stone dust, sand dust, or whatever that quartz sand is, and clay dust. Not to mention the water buckets, meaning all of this has to be crafted manually. Yes, I know there is some sort of auto-crafting system. I spent a couple of hours attempting to figure it out. I just couldn't get it to work. Alright, so you guys remember that brick dust from earlier? I need about 2 stacks and a little bit. I need that to make fire clay dust. It's a combination of brick dust and clay dust. I have to throw that into the steam compressor to make it into bricks and then smelt those bricks. I know, this is a ridiculous recipe chain, but this is just the beginning. This isn't even tier 1. We're barely in tier 0.5. I eventually decided to go explore one of the massive underground dungeons. These places are pretty cool and filled with all sorts of neat rooms. I brought a bow at first, but it must be bugged somehow because it wasn't working. I know for a fact the vanilla bow can work, but not this one, I guess. Anyways, these places are just infested with mobs. I should have figured. And of course, a lot of these mobs are infernal, which means that they're super powerful and dangerous. But honestly, I'm gonna skip over pretty much this entire part because there wasn't anything too interesting. Sure, I got a lot of cool items, but 99% of them are gonna be completely useless until later on. The main reason I went exploring is because I need books. I need books to make a bookshelf. I also need wood planks to make a bookshelf, but naturally not the vanilla wood planks. I have to grind up a bunch of wood like before and then throw that into a compressor. The real question you're probably asking is, why do I need a bookshelf? What does that give me? Well, since JEI autocrafting is just not working for me, there is a solution for that. Unfortunately, the quest is actually later, so I made this a bit early and I'd have to craft it again, but I guess having 2 isn't so bad. Anyways, I am making the forestry work table. This thing is pretty awesome because it's kind of like an auto crafter, but without power. You throw in all of your items, you add a recipe to the table, and you can automatically craft a ton of stuff. In this case, I'm using it to speed up the production of fire bricks, and eventually more concrete, because both of those are extremely annoying to make. So yeah, this is a very important building to make considering how much time it can save. I also found the work table awesome when making fresh water or fresh milk from Pam's Harvest Craft. You literally just throw all the buckets in there and you hold shift and click and boom, all crafted instantly. I love this thing. Once I got 36 bricks, I can finally make the entire thing. You need 4 bricks for the controller and 4 iron furnaces, but it's not actually that bad. It's a simple little building, and it looks pretty neat. This is the primitive blast furnace that I have. And with this, I can actually start making steel, which is insanely exciting. There are only a couple of problems. Well, this steel takes forever to make. As you can see here, that is 240 seconds, or 4 minutes, for a single piece of steel. And that's the fastest recipe, by the way. They only get worse from there. So let's just say this is probably going to take quite a while to get, well, any reasonable amount of steel. But still, at least I have production started, and that's what counts. Over half an hour later, I finally have 8 steel. That completes the blast off mission, which unlocks a whole bunch of stuff. I also got a bricked bronze hole from the loot bag. That's actually not bad, because I can use that to make more steam stuff. And now I unlock all sorts of crazy new missions. Unlocking steel gives me the ability to do so much now. First of all, I can upgrade all of my tools to steel, which is exactly what I did as soon as possible. Besides just being better, stronger, and mining faster, this means that I can actually mine higher tier items, including obsidian. Do you see where I'm going with this? I can make alumite legitimately now, which I'm going to do as soon as possible. I also finally made a real sword. I've been using my Matic for a long time now, and it's a great weapon, but I've noticed that my damage is horrible against most mobs. This is because of the crazy amount of armor they have. The rapier is an amazing weapon, and actually penetrates armor, but does low damage. But yeah, there's not much to do right now besides, well, waiting for all of my steel to be produced. In case you're wondering why I made 2 shovel and axe heads, I'm gonna throw them back into the smelter. I just wanted to complete the quest and get my reward. The only painful thing about getting new steel tools is that I need steel to repair them. Considering how long it takes, yeah, this hurts to do. But I can now go mine obsidian. You probably saw the other big reason to get obsidian in the mission book. You know, you can go to the Nether. That's another massive step in progression. Now, it's going to be a little bit before I go to the Nether. By little bit, I mean quite a while. But the one thing I will say is that there are all sorts of new ores and cool stuff in the Nether. That's the main reason unlocking it is so important. Now that I have all of the materials, I can make enough alumite. I may have made a bit too much because I forgot about the 2 ingots I made earlier, but oh well. I can finally cast my 2 large plates, and I'm getting super close to upgrading my tool forge. It's a bit of a shame I upgraded all of my tools super early like this. I guess I should have waited until I can make a better axe and shovel, but the pickaxe was unavoidable. I'm guessing most of you know, but the main reason I want to upgrade my tool forge is so that I can make better tools, like the hammer, which mines in a 3x3 pattern instead of just 1 block at a time, and eventually the excavator, or wherever the shovel is, that also mines in a 3x3. I didn't make the axe in this part, but I might eventually, as it could come in handy. Another neat thing I can make now is reinforcement modifiers. These are super interesting because it's not the normal obsidian plate and I think aluminum brass. Man, it's been a long time since I've used Tinker's Construct. But in this pack, you still need a large obsidian plate, but it's actually replaced with steel as the secondary ingredient. Thankfully, it's only 2 steel ingots, so it's not super expensive for how powerful the upgrade is. There's a super neat material that I'm working on making right now. I've been able to make it for a long time, I just didn't know about it, and now I have the mission to actually make it. Every so often I would find this iron ore, and specific ores actually smelt into 10 nuggets instead of 1 ingot. This is extremely annoying because I have no way to compress most of these. The only real way to do that is with the smeltery, and even that's annoying. But with iron, I can actually throw iron nuggets into a furnace. This reminds me a lot of the last mod pack I played where you can do that with iron ingots to make cast iron. I'm guessing wrought iron is pretty much the same thing. It's some form of cast iron, which is super cool. Wrought iron is pretty much like iron, but obviously smelted again, so it's a tiny bit better than before. It produces slightly stronger tools and everything like that, and it'll be insanely helpful later on. Just you guys wait and see. It's super cool. So this is a new clip, by the way. You guys are seeing all of this right. You can probably tell what I'm up to right now. Yes, that is correct. I am building more blast furnaces, or at least a second one to begin with. The answer to why I do this is actually quite obvious. I need more steel. My production is extremely slow right now, and the only way to increase production speed is, well, create more blast furnaces. This is when I learned that you actually need a wrench to pick up these blocks, which is like the most counterintuitive thing ever. I understand using a wrench to pick up like machines and stuff, but these bricks are just dumb. I mean, you'll see that later as well. It's gonna get really annoying for me. But either way, I managed to make a second blast furnace. That's pretty awesome. Before all of you Gregtech players yell at me in the comments, I now understand that you can actually connect them together so you don't use as many bricks. I'll get to that a bit later on, but I wanted to note that now before I get spammed with comments. Yes, I will do the proper design later on. Since I still want to make more and more blast furnaces, I'm gonna need more resources, like sand. I have a ton of clay from one of my trips earlier, but sand is a mild problem. The best way to get it right now is actually at the bottom of my lake. The issue is, it's all underwater. But do you guys remember that diving helmet from earlier? Cause I did, like halfway through my mining, and it's pretty sick, I have to admit. This was an amazing find. I mean, aqua affinity and respiration just by killing a random creeper? I'll absolutely take it. This is gonna save a bunch of time. And yes, I am still working on more blast furnaces. The mild issue is that I need more coke coal to get the slightly faster steel recipe. For that, I'm making a whole bunch of new coke ovens, and I mean a whole ton of them, because I have lots of clay and lots of sand, and I need, well, lots of steel. This is kind of a reoccurring theme in this pack. You just gotta keep making more buildings to produce more stuff. Also, I finally converted all of my sugarcane to actual crop sticks instead of just growing normally. That was definitely a great idea. Then something weird started happening. I got webbed and pulled towards an enemy. It's this odd creeper right here. I have to say, that's one of the most annoying things in this pack, is the infernal enemies with all their crazy effects. Like, that is just out of nowhere. There was no reason for that. I'm just trying to farm peacefully here. I decided to upgrade my entire Steam setup a bit further. I added some more boilers and obviously more machines of every type. I then had a genius idea. Okay, it's a little bit crazy, I'll admit, but using diamonds as fuel. In this mod pack, this is the first time I've ever seen this actually an option, you can use diamonds to smelt things. They can smelt 512 items per diamond. That's pretty insane. It has a burn time of 102,000. That's in ticks, I know. And if I do the math, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, divide by 20, then divide by 60, but I guess 85 minutes of burn time. That's a bit ridiculous. But it would kind of make sense for these boilers at least. Either way, considering how relatively easy it is to get diamonds and how few uses they have, yeah, I think they make awesome boiler fuel. I'm also glad that the boilers don't like explode or something once the steam pressure is full. I had a bad feeling about that at the beginning, that's why I was carefully adding fuel only when necessary, but yeah, you can just leave them running. This steam forge hammer is super awesome. I had to make an anvil for it, which I needed the compressor to make iron blocks for, but with this I can make plates a whole lot easier. Before I had to use 2 resources for 1 plate, now it's 3 for 2, which is pretty awesome. So it's like 1.5 per. It's far more efficient. Obviously I'll get even better methods later on, but for now I'll absolutely take this. I was making a ton of steel plates for one interesting use. I can actually upgrade my machines now that I have steel plates. I also need some wrought iron, which I've been making tons of in the background. But this forge hammer is pretty awesome. The high pressure versions of the steam machines pretty much just double everything about them. Okay, well, double how fast they operate, but also the steam they consume, so you have to be wary of that. Needless to say, this is a very exciting upgrade, because even though this isn't like a power system, it is in a way because, you know, it's steam power. I really like the progression in this pack. I am just loving it. For how ridiculously complicated it is, and only being in a tiny bit, I just love this mod pack. It's definitely one of the best ones I've ever played. I understand why everyone likes it now. For most of the coal I've been looking for, I've actually been mining diamond/graphite veins, and I may have completely forgotten that actual normal coal veins exist. That would probably solve my problem of why I can't actually find any coal decently. Another thing I learned later on, I wish I'd known way sooner, you can actually hammer down the coal ore instead of, smelting it to get 2 coal instead of just 1. So yeah, that would have gotten me way more. When I stepped outside of my base, I noticed that. You guys know what that is? That's a giant oil fissure that's permanently on fire. It's kind of hilarious. I'm guessing it happened from a lightning strike, but yeah, that's never going out. I don't know how I'm going to deal with that oil, or more importantly, when I'll get to deal with it, but that's just a permanent fixture in my world now. I think it's quite awesome, actually. It's so cool to look out of my base at night and see that entire thing burning. Wrought iron has all sorts of good uses, but the primary use I'm going for is the pipes it can create. Wrought iron can make some really good pipes, and even the large ones are better than their bronze counterparts. The main reason I want better pipes is obviously to increase the throughput of steam, so I can have more machines active at the same time. I'm guessing that's going to be a running theme throughout this entire run, like my pipes not having enough throughput, because I certainly know that was a problem in this episode. My old large bronze pipes only had a capacity of 4,800 liters per second. The new wrought iron ones have 7,200 per second, which is pretty insane. And these are going to work pretty well for now, but I plan to upgrade them to huge pipes later on. The primary issue with huge pipes is that they literally take twice the wrought iron because you need to make double plates. So that's going to be quite a while. And of course, I don't even truly need them yet. I definitely don't produce enough steam to merit those. There's also a couple things you might have noticed in the previous clip. My screen was a little foggy for some reason, and I was slowed. I say for some reason, but I know what it is. Pollution. It's a very fun mechanic. By fun, I mean horrible, but you can disable it. And pretty much all machines that you make produce pollution. Pollution is based on whatever chunk all of your machinery is in. As you can see, I have all of my machines in pretty much the same chunk. The blast furnaces are definitely the worst, but all of the steam machines and my coke furnaces, plus the iron ones on top, yeah, those are definitely making it worse. There are different tiers to pollution. I don't remember exactly what happens in each. I know at first, it gets foggy like this, then eventually you'll start getting slowness, mining fatigue, and eventually you'll actually start getting poison and wither damage if you stay in there. Thankfully, pollution does dissipate naturally, but it's a little bit slow, and considering how many machines I have, yeah, I produce a bit too much. But later on, once I start getting into actual technology, which I won't be able to do in this part, I will at some point be able to make an air filter that can start removing pollution. Or the better option is just to, space out your machines. Even better, you can totally disable the pollution mechanic, but I want to play with that, at least for quite a while, just because it is very much intended. What I'm currently working on is a massive iron tank to store a ton of fluid. If you're wondering why I'd need to store a lot of fluid, well, all of my coke ovens are almost full of creosote oil. I want to store that somewhere, because eventually I'll be able to use that in a boiler to make steam. So yeah, that's actually the entire project summed up right there. And I will admit one thing, I wasn't planning to say this, but I may have cheated a tiny bit in this run. So I actually took the iron tank gauge from this quest. I didn't mean to, I totally meant to take the gold berries. So later on, I may have went into creative and swapped the two. But yeah, I wanted to note that here, in case you're wondering how I got the gold ore berries later on. I got the experience ones from the other quest. I think it's the steel one. It took me a couple of minutes and a redesign of the tank because I had to figure out how to make it properly. I should have figured there's one gauge on the top and bottom in the middle, not on like one of the bottom sides. But with that, I have a fully formed tank, and now I can start storing all of my creosote oil. There's only one tiny problem. Remember when I was talking about throughput earlier? That's why I have to keep enabling all of these taps again. And yes, you need to use the faucets to actually get the oil out of the ovens. This is extremely annoying. When I was talking about throughput earlier, that applies to pretty much everything. And these pipes are a great example. Yeah, don't use the crappy 200 liters a second. The ovens can output 144 liters a second, meaning I can barely turn on one at a time, but due to pipe mechanics, yeah, that doesn't really work. My next idea was to try out large wooden pipes, and that worked a bit better, but I could still only drain like one or two at a time. Later on, I did upgrade to large wrought iron pipes, and that was a bit better, but in the end, once I had enough resources, I upgraded to huge wrought iron pipes. And with that, I'm guessing I could activate a few more, but I always do 4 ovens at a time to be safe. Because currently I do have 8 coke ovens down there, but I'll move the 2 on my upper level down there and a third one from spare blocks I had. So 11 in total. I should probably make 12 to round it out, but oh well. Since I have more fire bricks and the pollution is becoming a slight problem, I decided to move my blast furnace to a different chunk. It's probably a better idea to move it way further away than this, and, well, you'll see at the end of this episode, but eventually into the Nether. But this is a quad setup for a blast furnace. This is pretty much the optimal loadout, but you can keep adding and expanding the blast furnace as much as you want. You can only really have 2 sides, it's just like a coin, because you do need the controllers on each side, if that makes sense. Either way, this is awesome because it's more efficient, well, block-wise, and you can make 4 times as much steel. The only problem is it probably produces 4 times as much pollution. Or probably more than that, because it definitely feels like it. Either way, yeah, that's the next main problem, pollution. So yeah, this is not a great example. If I had known I could just keep infinitely expanding this thing, I would have put the controllers on the left and right sides, not the middle. I definitely should have done that either way, because accessing them all was a pain later on. But oh well, you live and you learn. And yes, this is going to be 8 blast furnaces in total. I have a feeling this run is just going to be transitioning from needing absolute tons of one material to another. First it was bronze, and now it's steel. I also learned a neat little trick. Besides armor penetration, the rapier has a cool ability where if you right click, it actually launches you back a tiny bit. This is great for short trades with enemies, but more importantly, it's great when I get the slowness debuff from pollution. It makes me move a whole lot faster. So neat little trick there. The next thing I wanted to work on, which seems pretty awesome, is a steam furnace, or steam oven, but it is a furnace. Its unique effect is that it actually smelts 9 items at a time, for the cost of 8,000 steam, which is extremely cheap. The only issue is that it's a little bit expensive to make. It just requires a ton of steel parts. Steel rods, steel plates, all that kind of stuff. Steel screws, we all know, but also steel casings, which is literally steel plates, but with a hammer. Again, I have a feeling this is going to be a lot of recipes in this game. Literally just the same thing processed again and again and again. But it's okay, I haven't lost my mind, just yet. It's a neat little 2x2 oven, and it even looks like an industrial thing, which is pretty awesome. I may have tried to place it down earlier without steam before I realized, oh yeah, it literally needs steam. I don't have anything to smelt, but naturally I wanted to try this thing because it sounds awesome, and it's exactly like I said, it smelts 9 items at a time. I think the processing time is around a normal furnace, might be a tiny bit faster, but it feels the same. Either way, that is awesome. Another major upgrade to my steam system is actually going to be the liquid boiler that I was kind of talking about earlier. It just uses all sorts of bronze and steel parts. I mean, we know how this goes at this point. It's just the same resource in like 10,000 different forms. As you can probably see, running 8 blast furnaces at the exact same time isn't the best of an idea. It creates an insane amount of pollution, and yeah, it's reached this stage. I didn't think I'd reach it this quickly, to be honest. Yep, I'm taking poison and wither damage. Fun. Or at least mage's poison. It's really hard to tell. To deal with this problem, I'm gonna make something that I've wanted to for a while, but forgot I have the ability to now. That is a hang glider. It takes a whole bunch of steel, which I now have, and a bunch of tanned leather and normal leather. It's actually quite simple to make. You guys have probably seen it in other mod packs because, this is the open blocks hang glider. It's tons of fun to use. And to use it, I decided to make a massive nerd pull, well, out of stone bricks instead of dirt because it looks nice, and eventually I'll place a ladder there instead. Another slightly interesting thing about the hang glider in this mod pack is that you seem to get an updraft every so often when you're flying, so you can actually fly way further than any other mod pack I've ever seen. Until you get like a jetpack or something, but I found that super neat. This is amazing for early game exploration. So one of the 2 dungeons I had actually spawned in like a mountain. Well, I guess it is a mountain. It's a really tall hill. So the foundation went super deep down. I did the math and my numbers eventually came out to around 1.8 thousand bricks. That's a lot of bricks, to say the least. This is gonna supply me with all the brick dust I'm ever going to need. This was an amazing find. Another neat thing I made is called a charcoal pile igniter. Pretty much, you build this massive structure out of bricks at the bottom, wood logs in the middle, and then you surround the outside with dirt and dirt on the top. And pretty much you right click the igniter once it's all built up and it turns all the logs inside into charcoal over time. Unfortunately, it is the same 1-to-1 charcoal ratio, but the whole idea is that it's like, I guess, faster and more efficient than using furnaces or something like that. I don't know, I just wanted to try it because it sounds pretty neat. Definitely not worth it in the end, considering how much manual labor it takes to make. It also really sucks because I overbuilt it by a little bit on the first try, so I had to destroy a lot of it and change the dimensions. So yeah, definitely not worth the effort I put in, but a very neat building either way. While that's burning, I decided to make something I should have made, well, way earlier on, as soon as I made the tool forge. I'm currently working on making some larger tools. You see, I hate to replace my pickaxe because it's so good, but the excavator is gonna make up for it super fast with the ability to mine a 3x3 section instead of just 1 block at a time. The only problem is that it does cost quite a bit of steel, but as you can probably see in my inventory, that's not a massive issue. The charcoal burner does only take 10 minutes, so it is super efficient for what it is. The game recommends that you build the lumber axe, which is, the axe that can cut down whole trees and mine 3x3. Yeah, I kinda see why. The Matic isn't the best here, especially because I have tons of speed on it, which means I can destroy all the dirt by accident. Either way, it is a super neat system. I just think there are better ways to do this. Like, I'd rather build tons of coke ovens so I could get the creosote oil instead. I decided it's about time to finally set up my new liquid boiler. There are 2 types of liquid boilers. Now, there are 2 types of boilers. Well, I guess 4 if you really think about it, because there's always solid fuels, but I'm going with liquid fuels. Alright, you have low pressure or high pressure. The low pressure tank, which, yeah, the tank is the one that decides it, requires a bunch of iron. But as you can see, I made the high pressure tank, which requires a lot of steel. The primary difference is their efficiency and how fast they heat up. I went with the high pressure one because I want more efficiency for my fuel. And yeah, that's the main reason. I learned later on that the high pressure boilers do take way longer to heat up and actually start boiling, but get more efficient, as in, I guess, use less fuel and produce more steam or something like that over time. And the steam output does get connected to the tank, not the actual box itself. The boiler box at the bottom needs to be connected to your liquid input. Thankfully, I already have a water pipe down here. Since I had the materials, I had a slightly insane idea. What if I upgraded my boiler even further? Instead of a 1x2, I'm going to do a 2x3. I know, it sounds pretty insane, but this boiler literally carried me for the rest of this run. Or at least, this episode and way further beyond. It creates an insane amount of steam. I'm not gonna really spoil anything, but I will say I literally didn't have steel problems until after all of this recording, when I'm recording for the next episode, and I'm running like every single extremely high demand machine I have at once. That's the only time I had steam problems. This thing is awesome, and this isn't even the max size. I think I can go a 3x3 base and maybe a 3 or 4 high tank. Yeah, it can get pretty insane. I decided to try using these wooden planks. I know these are also planks. They're slabs but cut in half, and you can use them as covers to cover all of your pipes. The only issue is I don't know how the pipes interact if you do something like that by accident. Sure, I could put that pipe somewhere else besides a corner, but yeah, in the long term, these are not a good idea. Thankfully, you can just throw the wrought iron pipes into a macerator, and it'll actually recycle all of the wrought iron, but then you have to smelt it again. So yeah, plates to cover your pipes, not a good idea, especially because of something interesting that happens a bit later on. I finally have enough wrought iron to start upgrading my steam system with new piping. And the nice thing is my whole new setup is huge pipes. This gives me double the capacity of my old steam pipes. So from 7,200, it's 14,400 liters of steam a second. That's insanity right there. This now means that I can use pretty much all of my machines at the same time. Granted, that's going to be rare, but still, that is an insane upgrade. I absolutely love this steam machinery. Another thing I wanted to try is to automate some of my buildings. The only options I have at this point are either hoppers, which would be difficult, but honestly are definitely the better choice here. But I wanted to try these tin pipes. Long story short, no, they do not work. Not yet, at least. You see, these are meant for the Gregtech machines, and they really work better later on, especially with the giant multi-block machines. And it was quite a while before I actually learned that I can't get actual, like automation pipes until way later on. I'm going to need some of the LV machinery before I can actually make any good pipes. On one hand, that's super unfortunate. It means I have to do everything manually. But on the other hand, at least I wasn't wasting all of my time when everything could have been far more efficient. Speaking of those large steam multi-block machines, that's exactly what I'm working on next. I need all sorts of resources. A lot of it is bronze and steel, as usual, but I also need these clay plates that you can see in my inventory. Those are easy enough, you just throw clay dust into a compactor. But then I need some tembaga. What the heck is this stuff? Well, it's an interesting alloy that requires quite a bit of gold and copper. Another thing I read from one of the comments is that you will get a ton of these coins over time, so I decided to actually start using them a little bit. I'm using the technician coins to buy pistons. This is to save me a whole lot of time because pistons are very annoying, and because the technician coins are the most abundant out of all of them so far. A while back, I upgraded all of my steam machines to the high pressure tier, but only now did I notice that the steam forges actually take up 2.4 thousand liters of steam a second. That's insanity. Well, I'm super glad that I upgraded my steam system now because, yeah, that's a lot of steam. Of course, these are just the small machines too. I am just about to get into the large multi-block structures. And even though I'm only going to make the basic tier, the steel tier of these machines consumes ridiculous amounts of steam. So again, getting the high pressure steam system is absolutely worth it when you're dealing with this much machinery. All of the parts of this machine were relatively easy. It's that tembaga alloy, and of course, tons of bronze and steel. I also needed a clay pipe, which is what I needed that clay plating for, and oddly enough, a water bucket. But those are all super simple. Throughout this run, it takes me a while to actually assemble all of these multi-blocks because they can be pretty complicated. Or in this case, I just assemble it completely wrong. I'm currently making the squasher, which is literally a compressor. And this is a 3x3x3 instead of a 3x3x4, which is the grinder that I'm going to be making next. The steam grinder is a better macerator. If you're curious what these multi-block machines do, well, they are literally large versions of their smaller counterparts. The coolest part is that they can do what's called parallel. Parallel is, from what I've read, like the amount of the smaller machines that this one machine can do. So these machines have 8 parallel, which means it literally acts as 8 of the smaller machines. So it goes 8 times as fast, pretty much. But naturally, it consumes a whole lot more steam. It's also nice because you can actually automate these with the tin pipes. but I don't have all the other stuff I'd need, and yeah, those tin pipes are pretty much worthless, this stage at least. I'm guessing they'll be way more useful later on. Either way, this is awesome because I can make so much more wrought iron way faster now. A little bit earlier, I was harvesting some more cows, when I managed to get a cow trophy. That's pretty awesome. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to do much, except when I clicked it, it gave me leather. So I'm wondering if it gives me some cow product on cooldown. I guess that's pretty neat. I did check, and some of the other trophies do actually have crafting recipes, but yeah, nothing much to do with the cow. Still an insanely rare drop, which is pretty neat. And here is the 3x3x3 steam grinder. This is pretty awesome. So it's literally 8 macerators in one block. Since I just harvested a whole bunch of iron and copper, well, I'm going to be using this to grind down the iron ore faster, so I can throw it into the steam furnaces to make more wrought iron. And you probably noticed it earlier, but I did make a second steam furnace, and as you can see here, 2 more. So I have 4 steam ovens, or steam furnaces, in total. Granted, I only use the maximum capacity when I'm processing wrought iron like this, but it's still incredibly handy. So everything was going good up until now. I think we can all see the issue here. I'm running out of water. I did not expect this to happen. I completely didn't even think about this being a possibility. I mean, I had 400,000 liters of water. I thought that'd last me forever. I guess I didn't consider I used water faster than I can create it. At this point, my brain is scrambling trying to figure out what I can do to solve this problem. Thankfully, there is a Steam multi-block that actually solves this problem. It looks extremely simple and cheap, so I'm going to go for that. In the meantime, I can refill the water tank on the surface manually with some buckets. Because of course, I really don't want my boiler to run out of water and explode. I'm not 100% sure if this one does, but I think it might. So yeah, I don't want that to happen. I mean, sure, I could always just mine it up and disable it, but where's the fun in that? Plus, it would take forever for the thing to restart and heat back up, so I have to say, this entire steam water pump plan was working out pretty well until now. I mean, most of the materials are easy enough to get. There's just one tiny problem. There's one thing I can't actually craft. You see, one of the parts I need is a ULV, which is like ultra low voltage or whatever, machine case. Now, I have most of the parts for it. I even have some rubber that I got from completing some missions. So in theory, I can scrape together most of the parts to make it. I'm missing one item that I need: lead. Where do you get lead, you might ask? Well, apparently it's plentiful in the Twilight Forest, I think, if I remember correctly, but you can find it in tiny amounts in the Nether. And guess what? I haven't gone to either of those yet, so I have no lead, which means I cannot make this machine. That's a major issue, because now I have to figure out a new source of water. I'm gonna save us both a lot of time and cut to the chase. One of the comments I got told me that I should move my base to an area with at least 80% humidity, and I can understand why now. So I don't want to move all of my stuff, but conveniently, very close to my base, there is a 70% humidity biome. That's gonna work just perfectly. I've been growing some more rubber trees, and then tree tapping them to get their sticky resin. With that sticky resin, if you guys remember from the first episode, I'm making more of these water tanks. That's gonna be my entire goal. Literally just build more. That seems to be the solution to most things in this pack. And eventually I added way more tanks to this thing. I think at the end of this I had something like 7 or 8 tanks. So yeah, that's definitely gonna sustain me. I believe that's like 56 liters of water a second, not to mention the fact that you get more water when it's actually storming. With all of those combined, yeah, this is definitely going to solve my water issues for at least a while. I will have better water solutions eventually. And as I'm recording this, there is actually a super cool one. It's a machine that requires some advanced parts that I'm making in the 3rd episode, and it actually consumes solid fuels, and it even recommends the stupid lignite coal, which I absolutely will be using, and all of the coal dust that I have no use for. And yeah, it just produces a bunch of water. It also produces pollution, so I'll probably throw that somewhere outside of my base. Probably near the water tanks, honestly. Actually, now that I think about it, I might just build another giant iron tank to hold all that water. Speaking of lignite coal, considering I don't really have a use for it, there is actually a mission where you can convert it to normal coal ore. It does take 65 explorer coins though, but those are easy enough to get if you kill a ton of mobs. And considering I have no other use for this coal right now, I think it's definitely worth it, considering I need normal coal so that I can make coke coal for steel. As usual, I've been working on just a massive variety of different projects, and this time I'm working on a bunch of missions, just to get their rewards. So I crafted up a few different sets of armor, and then recycled some of them with the macerator, but this time I'm making something interesting called advanced alloy. For this, I need tin plates, bronze plates, and iron plates. This is like the cheapest recipe. There are actually some insanely expensive advanced alloy recipes later on, because it is like a mid to late game resource. I've seen it used for like rocket bases and everything like that. So what do I need this advanced alloy for, you ask? I need it to make a composite vest. That's going to be my new chest plate. It's literally 6 advanced alloy plates, a steel and leather chest plate combined. It offers a massive amount of protection with a really good durability. For my helmet and leggings, I'm also going to be using steel armor. You see, I was originally planning to make a full set of composite armor, but no, it's only a chest plate for some stupid reason. This is also a problem I've run into in this run. When you right-click a machine face with a plate of some sort, it decorates it. I'm hoping one of you guys has a solution to this to remove the plate, because I've wasted several plates now doing this by accident, and I would love to get them back. Especially this rubber one. Well, and at this point, because I don't have much rubber. I can't make it just yet. I'm getting very close. But yeah, that's insanely annoying. Alright, but after that, you're probably wondering what I'm making with this rubber. With some pistons, tanned leather, these rubber plates, and leather boots, I can actually make a super neat piece of equipment called piston boots. These things are awesome. They actually do quite a few things. First of all, they give you an auto step. Not an auto jump, but it does assist your step up to the next block so that you use less hunger. That's amazing on its own. But on top of that, it gives you a jump boost of 2 more blocks. So you can jump up 3 blocks at a time, which is awesome. And naturally, it allows you to fall a bit further before you take fall damage, which is very helpful in my case because I always seem to do that. Oh yeah, and the last thing I forgot to mention about it is it gives you a speed boost when you sprint. I mean, it's no wonder that the mission literally says you want to get these as soon as possible. Yeah, they're pretty powerful, especially for how easy they are to make. And I'm pretty sure it's either these piston boots or the composite vest. But a little bit later, I noticed something very odd. I'm actually able to stand on and press against the steam pipes. I was never able to do this before, and I am willing to bet it's the composite vest. I think that's the likely suspect here, but I'm certainly not complaining. I can now walk on the pipes, which I quite enjoy doing in mod packs. And of course, all this preparation is so that I can finally go to the Nether. A flint and steel is super easy. It's, well, literally flint and steel, because steel in this mod pack. The Nether is super interesting because of all the different mods that change stuff in here. However, the running theme in this pack is the ore chunks. And yeah, the entire ore chunk system is exactly the same as before. So I just have to find my ore chunks and start mining. There are a bunch of different resources here in the Nether that I cannot get in the overworld. Like I said earlier, lead is one of them, but unfortunately lead does not come in veins. It actually just comes in small chunks, and even those are extremely rare, so I won't be able to get much lead until I go to the Twilight Forest. But the main thing I'm looking for here is actually sulfur. Nether quartz is also nice if I want to make my sword stronger, but sulfur is the main goal. Now, I haven't really talked about it in this pack yet, but the main reason I've been looking for sulfur for quite a while now is to make rubber. That's kind of a big step in progression. You see, I have the sticky resin and rubber trees, but I need sulfur to actually create the rubber bars. I also have to process the sticky resin into rubber by throwing it into the extractor, but that's easy enough. One thing you guys might have noticed is the lack of enemies here in the Nether. Well, that's actually not normal. I may have been playing on Peaceful for quite a while. You see, the last few mining trips I've been playing on Peaceful, I was originally hoping that I could kind of cheese the game and not have to deal with hunger, but no, they expected that. You literally still have to deal with hunger even in Peaceful mode. But I left it enabled because dealing with mobs is insanely annoying, especially when I'm like seriously hollowing out the resource veins like I am now. But since I'm in the Nether, I realized, hey, why are there no enemies here? And I was like, oh, right. So I'll turn it back on for the Nether. And as you can see, this is more like the intended experience. There are enemies absolutely everywhere, and they're all extremely difficult. It's funny because the quests even say that you will die here at some point. I mean, I can see why. This place absolutely sucks. I haven't even managed to find a Nether fortress yet, because apparently, I think it's the blazes that are all infernal. You know, the ones with special effects. So that's going to be interesting to say the least. But I just wanted to do a bit of exploring for a while. There are a ton of cool resources here. I have to say though, mining in the Nether has like upsides and downsides. On the bright side, it's way more fun because it's super fast. You just chew through netherrack like it's nothing. So I love that part of this experience. The thing I don't love is all the mobs I have to deal with. As you can see here, I run back a tiny bit in my mine and it is infested already. Yes, I know I should have brought torches, but I can see perfectly fine without any extra light in here, so I'd rather not use them. The Nether has all sorts of cool resources, including some veins that are also in the overworld. I've found like copper and iron veins, but obviously I'm here for sulfur. Something odd that also seems to happen is if you mine near zombie pigmen, they'll actually get aggressive and start attacking you. I don't know why this happened, but all I know is that I'm not going to have any of that, so I just went back to Peaceful. Again, this is just a player choice. I'd rather not have to deal with the enemies while mining, and you know, it's far more, well, peaceful that way. I still have to deal with the food. And the other major issue with mining in the Nether, well, you're in the Nether. It's filled with lava. There are just random lava pockets everywhere. It really sucks when I dig a giant part out, and I mine into a lava block that then deletes a lot of my ores. That really sucks. But again, it's relatively fast to mine here. Now that I have sulfur, refining it is extremely easy. I throw it into the macerator to break it down, then I throw it into the forge hammer to make the dust. I have to purify the dust by throwing it in water, and it's that simple. Using the raw rubber that I got by throwing sticky resin into an extractor, combining that with sulfur, and by using an alloy furnace, I can make rubber bars. This is awesome. I have my own renewable source of rubber at last. I then decided to take some time and set up some more farms. I moved my old sugarcane farm, gave that its own little plot, and I'm using crops to grow sugarcane, mostly because it's faster, but it's also just easier in general. I made a massive plot of cocoa. I definitely did not need that much, but hey, why not? I made a little slime tree farm. Oh yeah, I don't know where the footage of this went, but at some point I did go raid one of those sky slime islands. I didn't get everything to complete the mission, so I'll probably go back at some point. But yeah, I just wanted to note that. I'm growing all sorts of new plants, including grapes, because I love raisins, and candleberries. Candleberries are very interesting because you can actually press them into wax, and that wax can eventually be used for other things like the hardened leather. So it'll be nice to have a massive plot of these going. I mean, I need to get into bees at some point, I just don't know when I'm gonna do that. I've also been working on a farm for all of these ore berries. The primary issue with the ore berries, okay, well, there are two. The first one is that they can't grow with too much light. You see, I need some light so I can actually see what I'm doing, but the plants can't have too much. That's why a design like this works pretty well. The second issue is that they damage you if you stand on them. That's why I made a 3-wide platform in the middle. Obviously, the water positioning could have been better. Maybe it should be on the outside instead of the inside, but oh well. This is a pretty good farm. Originally, I was planning to add tin ore berries, And maybe I will at some point when I can eventually automate farms, but for now I'm going to have aluminum, iron, gold, and experience. I don't really think I need the experience ones, but maybe at some point. I've just been spending a lot of time doing all sorts of random things around my base. A lot of it though has been cleaning the place up, because that's what this place desperately needs. And finally I have redone my sorting system so it is far better than before. I went back to the Nether for a little while to mine some more stuff, because it's so fun, when I happened to find a whole bunch of emeralds. This is a neat little resource vein. This is actually beryllium, which from my knowledge is used in nuclear stuff. The only problem is I don't think I'll be touching nuclear for probably a couple 100 hours or something like that. So yeah. It's still neat because I might have a use for emeralds at some point. I still haven't found a village though. That's definitely on my list to go do. This is also a very interesting thing I found in the Nether. A pool of blood. Now, I have no clue what this is going to be used for, or what mod it's going to be used in, but one interesting thing I can say about this blood is that it literally acts as water in the Nether. Now, for some reason, I don't have any recording of it, but I will tell you, I used this to put out massive pools of lava, which gave me obsidian and made mining a whole lot easier. So this was an awesome find. Just like one of the missions suggests, I decided to move my blast furnace into the Nether. Yeah, this is an infinitely better idea. This means that I'll have no pollution issues in the overworld. It's also nice because I later figured out how to get chunk loading to work. There are a few ways to do this, but I decided to go with the server utilities mod. This way I didn't have to make any buildings, I don't have to power anything. I literally just run a couple of commands. I first had to claim this chunk as my own, and then I literally just had to do like /chunk load, and it's infinitely loaded and always making steel for me. It's pretty amazing. I still only have the 8 blast furnaces, but because of my new setup, I almost have enough to set up another one. Well, another 2 technically. Later on, I think between episodes, I did end up adding a couple more, and if I remember correctly, I have like 14 of these in total. It's actually quite insane. So it should be pretty obvious I literally cannot go in here when it's running. The pollution is just too insane. But come on, we all have to admit, this is absolutely awesome. The last thing I wanted to work on is a steel tank. Just like that iron tank that's been holding all of my creosote oil this entire time, I wanted to make a steel version that can hold double the liquid, which is pretty awesome. My original plan was to make a 4 cubed block, but apparently you cannot do even numbers. It has to be odd numbers. I think for the width. I think it can be even for the height, but in the end, I decided to go for a 5 by 5 by 5 steel tank. It's pretty insane. I don't remember the exact amount of steel I started this project with. I'm pretty sure it was somewhere around like 1,000, and I practically ran out near the end. So yeah, this was quite expensive, but in the end, it's going to be worth it with how much creosote oil I'm producing right now. I've transitioned from just normal coal to smelting it in blocks. Think it's any more efficient? I'm pretty sure it just takes the same amount of time, but you know, multiplied by 9. I think it's just more efficient in block form because I have to change items around less. But this is pretty much the last major project I'm going to be working on in this episode. I have done so much in this pack, yet I've barely gotten into this game at all. It's pretty insane. As you can probably tell though, I am loving every minute of it. This is definitely one of the best mod packs I've ever played. And I don't remember the exact time, but near the end here, I'm pretty sure I had somewhere around 90 hours in this pack. For context, I only had like 18, so I'll say 20 by the time I started recording for this episode. Yeah, that's a lot of time. In the end, I finished up building my 5 by 5 by 5 steel tank, and I upgraded all of the pipes to huge wrought iron pipes, since I was making so much of it for that exact purpose. I can't wait to see what I'm going to get up to next. All I know is that I'm going to need a lot of steel. So that's what I'm working on in between parts. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed playing this pack, which is a lot. And thank you all for watching. I always appreciate it. And of course, a special thank you to all of my channel members. All of you guys are awesome. And this is going to be Enzo from LookIntoGaming, signing out.